Alright, so Guy on Games, this episode is obviously for Saints Row 4. I can show this under free right usage for reviews. My last video I did, Saints Row the Third because, Saints Row the 4 was coming out, I think, the next day from that video. And, I talked a lot about how, this game was basically meant to be, DLC in the beginning for Saints Row the Third, but, some things happened, THQ no longer exists, and now Deep Silver is taking over, and Deep Silver being the publisher of Dead Island and some other games too. But they took over, and the game was canceled as DLC and became a full game, which is now, of course, Saints Row 4. And I guess the first thing to start off with, aside from the story, is the basic customization elements for your characters and just the other characters in the game in general. And in this review, there will be small spoilers. I won't be spoiling a ton of stuff for the game or huge moments and things like that. But there are some things like the very beginning of the game. There are things that I have to talk about that will spoil it. So I will let you know when I get to that. But as far as customization and characters, you know all the crazy customization is back from the game. From previous games, you can customize your character. Clothes, look. There's more options. For depth and things like that. Eyebrow depth, and it's a lot like the Fallout games where there's a ton of customization. Except in Saints Row, I think it's more appropriate because you have cutscenes and stuff where you get a close up of your character and things like that. As where in Fallout, it's just when you put it into 3D, that's when you really see your character. So you get all these new customization options. One of my favorites is actually for the voice. You can change the pitch, so now you can have like a really high pitched voice, which actually sounds more like a robot voice than it does just like a really high pitched voice, which I actually prefer. And then you have like a really deep voice, which is like a super deep robot voice rather than just a really deep voice. One thing that kind of sucks is the voice actress for one of the female voices is the Latino speaking woman. She's not in this game anymore, which really sucks because I chose her as my female voice for Saints Row the Third and Saints Row Two when I replayed that one. And with her being taken out, they obviously put in a replacement woman, and she does a French voice, which is pretty interesting. It's obviously not the same, and it's just unfortunate for me personally because I picked the one woman that ended up being replaced in this game. And I'm sure that affects someone who might be watching who enjoyed that voice more than the other female voices, and now you kind of have to pick a replacement. But I guess the one silver lining that I found in picking the woman who speaks French and stuff, she says like boudoir instead of bedroom, and she actually says French words and stuff. So it does change up the dialogue compared to when I played as my male character, which it does in the other games too, where the Latina woman would say stuff in Spanish, or the random taunts when your character is like walking around when you kill a random person. They say different things. Um, I guess the little silver lining I thought of was if you pick the French speaking woman, you could kind of make her like Gambit if you do the pitch right and make up the character right. You can make Gambit because she, like I said, she says boudoir and she says mon ami and things like that, and you could kind of have Gambit in the game, and that's like a random silver lining that people could have as a you know as a silver lining really because the previous woman was replaced. But it's like a minor gripe. It's not even really a gripe for the game. It's obviously not like they just fired her for any reason or anything like that. And all the other guy characters, I believe they're all the same. I only once again I always just pick one voice, but the main voice I believe is still the same from Saints Row the Third, and it's the same that they used in the commercial. So I do believe it's the same guy. And they also added a seventh option because normally three guys, three girls. They added a seventh option, and it's Nolan North, and it's just his name, which I thought was really funny. And I found that when they did the inauguration station, and it was just really silly. It was just like Nolan North. You just there you go. He's in Centro too, by the way. He does some of the random voices and stuff. So that was before he was like really really popular. It's like Nolan North is some of the random people you might kill, as well as Carrie Payton, who's Cyborg in Teen Titans. Just random fact. But it's cool just to have that. It's really silly just to see it. It's like really generic stuff. Just male 1 2 3, female 1 2 3. Then it's just Nolan North. But you have the cool customizations, like I said, more in depth as far as eyebrows and just facial features and things like that, and of course the voice. But as far as the clothes go, once again, you get all the silly clothing you want. You get superhero costumes. They have a lot. They have a lot of parody costumes, which are really cool. They had like the Matrix one in the third, and I believe they still have it in this one. I never really wore it, so I didn't look for it in this one. But they have like a Han Solo outfit, which of course they can't call it Han Solo. They call it Puckish Rogue. And then they have Boba Fett in the game as well. It's like slightly the helmet looks like it's really big, I think, and so obviously it keeps them from being sued pretty much. But they have the costumes, and they're obviously meant to reference Han Solo and Boba Fett. And unfortunately, some of the items in the third don't translate over to Saints Row 4, and that really only sucks if you kind of do what I did, which goes along with me picking the same voice actors. You you make a character in Saints Row the Third, and since they added in the whole station where you can make a character and put your character online and download other people's characters, a lot of people, I'm sure, they made their character in Saints Row the Third, and it's like, well, with the game kind of continuing on, and it basically has the same graphics, it's slightly updated, but with it basically being the same engine and everything, well, it is the same engine. You can transfer your character from Saints Row the Third to Saints Row 4, and sometimes when you do that, your costume might not transfer over. Like a lot of my costumes for my female character, certain pieces would be missing. Maybe the top would be missing or the bottom. And there was one costume where it was just like completely missing. She just had boots on and a bra and panties, and it was like, oh well, obviously none of like the items I chose in Saints Row the Third are not in this game. And it kind of sucks because it seemed like it would be so simple for them to just transfer the items over when it's just like a hoodie or a specific type of pants. It seemed really simple, but certain items were just taken out of the game. And one that I had was actually for my character that looked like Black Cat from Spider-Man, and that was like my favorite one. And the top is missing in Saints Row 4, but I found out some of like fortunately my favorite costumes that being Black Cat, and another one I had was like a combat based one. They do have replacement items, like they have a superheroine suit in Saints Row 4, and it's not the same one from Saints Row the Third. It actually looks like the Black Cat outfit that I created. So it was kind of cool to know I could get this outfit and it would pretty much look the same. And of course, they do still have the superhero and superheroine costumes with like the tight fit shirts and stuff where you can change the color. So it's still really cool, and they have like I said, new costumes, the Han Solo, Boba Fett stuff, and just other new costumes. They have like I believe the wolf thing is new. They have like a full body like wolf werewolf type outfit, and I believe that's new because I never did any of the furry cosplay stuff in the game. I always just pick like random cool outfits and things like that. Aside from like the Professor Genki stuff, it was all pretty normal clothing. But like I said, some of the items don't transfer over, so that kind of sucks. But generally, there's a replacement. It's not going to be exactly the same, of course, but it's very similar. So you'll be able to adjust without you having to be like, oh well, now I can't make this outfit at all. Aside from like I said, the one outfit where there was nothing at all except the boots in the game. But it's kind of cool that they at least do still have tons of customization, and like I said, they added more for the characters, and they've also added more for both the cars and even your own weapons, which is really cool. The guns, you get guns from enemies. You can either buy the guns, or you can just steal the guns off of other enemies after you kill them. And when you actually go to the friendly fire stores, when you pick the guns, it'll have like customized, and you can go through all these different menus. Well, it's one menu, but it has all these different options in it where like you can get a shotgun and it can have like 12 different color designs to it, and that's really cool. And each design, there could be three separate categories, and each category will have three colors. And the three separate categories could be, one could be like a silent shotgun, which they have in the game, which is pretty cool, and it sounds like a silent shotgun. And then they have one that's like um, a blunderbuss, and it sounds like a blunderbuss. Then they have like a laser type shotgun, and it sounds different, and of course looks different as well. And it's really cool to have that customization for every single weapon you have. You have multiple types of handguns. So you have, I believe, three different types of handguns. Each different type of handgun has about three or four separate categories with three different color schemes in it. So you could have, like, one of my favorites for the handguns, you get magnums, and they actually have a wireframe design where it's just blue and yellow wires, and you can see through the guns, and it just looks really cool to me. And then they have stuff for even your special weapons, like um, one of my favorites for sure, the dubstep gun, which is also one of the silliest guns in the game. You can change that, and it actually will change the song that you fire when you shoot the dubstep gun, which is actually a really cool feature that they have in the game. You have your basic white version, and it plays the one song you might have heard in the trailers. Then they have sort of a black industrial type version that's a different song, and then they have sort of a anime inspired like K-pop type version that's like pink and has fire on it, and that plays a third song. So it's really cool. It's like that more than the other guns. They do sound different and look different, but obviously with that being a musical based weapon, it's much cooler to have actual different music come out of the gun than just different sounds when you shoot off a bullet from a handgun, or a laser when you change it to a laser pistol or something like that. But the customization is definitely really cool. And then like I said, with the cars, they have even more in-depth customization. Like, you can change words on the cars now, where it'll say Saints for Life, or you can leave it as what it has on the car if it's like a cop car. um, like, I really only customize about three vehicles, unfortunately, because in the game, which everyone knows, at least you should know, you do get superpowers, and being able to run at super speed and jump super high kind of eliminates the need for vehicles. But they do have more customization, and it's really only necessary in the very beginning of the game, when you before you actually get your superpowers, where where you actually even run around and get in vehicles and try to steal them and stuff. But they do at least have customization if for some reason you decide I want to just drive around, which sometimes you might, because after a while, just running at super speed and jumping, as fun as it is, sometimes you do just want to just sit in a cool car, and just drive around for a little bit. It might only be like 30 seconds, because generally I'm like, okay, I want to get in this really cool car that I customized. And as soon as I flip it over, I'm like, oh, well, I'm done. And it'll be like 30 seconds later, and then I'll just be running and flying again. So it does kind of, seem useless to have the customization of the cars in the game. But at the same time, if they didn't, if you couldn't customize cars, it would still be a complaint in the game, because you can't have something as robust as car customization, at least especially how Saints Row the Third does it. You can't just take all of that out and then expect people to be okay with that. So they do at least leave it in the game, and like I said, they actually add more to it for the little bit you might actually use. But at least it's there, and it is fun to actually play around with. Now, as far as the story goes, this is where we get to some of the spoiler stuff, and it's only for the first mission, so believe me, it's not really a spoiler at all for the game. But you start off the game, it's pretty basic. You can't see your character's face, because that's how they go through the whole customization thing, where you can change your character around, and you can't hear the voice either, and they have a helmet on. And you go through, and it's sort of a Call of Duty parody. All of your melee kills are like stealth kills, and you stab people with knives, you're killing terrorists. And one thing that really surprised me is that you're actually going after Cyrus Temple, who is like the final villain in Saints Row the Third. And it really caught me off guard, because at first I was thinking, I kind of thought you kill him at the end of the third, but then I kind of went back and thought about it, and you don't. You just defeat him, and he's basically disgraced when you beat him, and that's it. And this takes place years after Saints Row the Third, and you go after him, and the weirdest thing about it is he's in the first mission, but all you really do is you chase him, and then you tackle him, and you kill him like he falls into like this pit or whatever of some chemical, and it kills him, and that's it. It like sets off a nuke after that, and then you go and stop the nuke. And it was so weird to me that they put him in the game really, and I felt like it was from the time when Saints Row 4 was originally the DLC, and maybe they had some aspect where you know Cyrus Temple was gonna come back into the game and I don't know work with the aliens or something like that. But I guess they put it in there just to have some sort of finality with him because if you played Saints Row the Third, it does make sense that he'd still hate the Saints and try to pretty much take over. And he kind of with him being a disgraced veteran and losing his rank and being pretty much destroyed, as far as his image goes, it kind of makes sense that he kind of just snap and go crazy on people. But they kind of just, fly through that, and it's sort of weird. But, they went through that, and then it skips 5 years after that mission, and, it goes into you being the president, and, you make some really minor decisions. They're just comedy moments, really. And then it goes into, like, the main story and before the main story actually begins, there are little things you get to see, like in the very first mission. Once again, they bring back another character from Central the Third, Matt Miller, who was a part of the Syndicate, and in this game he's actually an MI6 agent, and he's a good guy from the very beginning. And I thought, that's really cool. I didn't expect him to come back like really at all because I didn't remember seeing him in the trailers or anything. So it was cool to see him come back as a good guy this time. And then you go through, that first mission, and then you're in the White House. You get to see other characters. You get to see the guy who plays the character Nightblade. I can't remember the guy's actual name in the game, but he's once again just like a silly character. They have Oleg in the game, and he like kicks a guy who's like running at you. He's like, "I'm your biggest fan," and he just like kicks the guy, and it kind of looks like he killed him, but he just like kicked. I mean, he's a giant guy, and he kicked someone really hard. But you go through, and the aliens come in, and that's when things really get crazy. Everyone's getting abducted. You're running through the White House, and one of my favorite things is you go through. You have, the president has bodyguards. When you go in through and the aliens are fighting the bodyguards, when the bodyguards die, they all say like really funny lines. And my favorite one is like a guy died, and he was like, "Tell my wife I have another wife," and it was just like silly stuff like that. And so you go through, you fight these aliens, you watch everyone pretty much get abducted, and then you fight the leader of the aliens, Zinyak, and you're fighting him, you're beating him up. Well, you're not really beating him up because he's an alien. He has all these superpowers that eventually you do get in the game. He can fly, he has telekinesis, he can teleport, and he's like a really huge character. He's had to be like 10 feet tall or something like that, 10, 12 feet tall, or not 12 feet, but probably like 10 feet or something like that. And he's like just like a towering type of character, and he's a really cool character actually. He's very like he's well versed in modern literature and classic literature. Like he talks, he reads lines from Macbeth and stuff, and it's really cool to have a smart villain in the game. But when you first meet him, obviously you being the leader of the Saints, you just bad mouthing him the whole time, trying to beat him up, and then he puts you in the simulation, and that's when the game gets really really over the top. I mean, it seems weird to that you could get more over the top than aliens, and having the first mission be like a Call of Duty reference where you like stop a nuke by yourself. But once you get into the simulation, it starts off really funny, and you're in like a 50s TV show. And when I played it originally, it was really funny, and then the second time I played it with the female character, it didn't make as much sense because it was obviously like a 50s TV show. So you're playing like the woman, but the role is still exactly the same where you do the same stuff. So when you go down to eat, it's like you're playing a woman, but it's still like you have a wife cooking for you. And obviously, this is me just going too far into something that's silly because it's Saints Row, and thinking about like actual 50s TV shows. Like there would never be two women together and stuff like that. But it's just like a random thing I thought about, and it just kind of fits better when you actually play as a guy because it makes the reference to like 1950s shows more realistic, and it makes it funnier that way because oddly enough, it being more realistic makes it better of a silly reference. But like I love that portion, and you go through, and when you leave the house and you first drive, I love how when it tells you, hit this to drive and hit this to brake, it says like, press this button to cautiously accelerate, and then press this, stop for, brake for stop signs. And you drive down the street with a character who I believe is based off of Andy Griffith, and you drive down the street, and if you try to hit people, the car will it won't let you hit anyone. It'll barely let you go to the other side of the street, which is kind of cool. And you'll go over, and it'll just bring you right back to where you're supposed to be. And I didn't really notice it the first time I went through because I was actually kind of just looking at the area because it's all these it's 50s based, so all the cars look really old, and they're I really like old cars, and everyone's in old time old 50s style outfits, and not like the really cool ones where people are like leather jacket type stuff. Everyone's just like regular dressed up in suits and stuff, which I feel like was kind of a missed opportunity. And something else that I feel is kind of unfortunate is that the 50s portion of the game isn't a section of Steelport. It's just a specific part in the game, and that portion, and another portion later on. And I was really hoping once you go through, it would kind of open up the simulation, or it would be like this simulation or this part of the simulation is now just a new island on Steelport or something. It's like 50s Island or something like that. And I thought that would have been really, really cool to have like this whole section where it's just, people say silly 1950s things, and all the cars are old, and the houses and the people just look like they're in the 1950s. And then you kind of like go right across the water, and it goes back to like normal Saints Row or something. But, unfortunately, that doesn't happen. However, the cars from that section do stay in the game, and like I said, you can customize them. They're just a bit harder to find because once you get into the simulated Steelport, you have all the cars that were in Saints Row the Third, plus some of the new ones they made. They have like they have a three wheeler, which I thought was pretty cool. They added monster trucks, which even with the superpowers, the monster truck is definitely a cool vehicle to drive because it's a monster truck. It's something that you just don't have. Although personally, I haven't even really remembered to drive it. I drove it one time, and that was actually because it was one of like the steal the car missions, where you take it and deliver it to a certain location. And I was actually glad I did it because, like I said, it was a monster truck, and it was like a neon monster truck, so it looked really cool. But even after that, with it being a monster truck, it just wasn't on my mind, and I actually drove the cop car that I stole more than I did the giant neon, monster truck. But they have the 50 style cars in the game. They have the 50 style clothing, but of course, like I said, it's not really like cool leather jacket where you might want to make your character look like they're from the 50s. It's more like typical boring 50s style clothing. So I haven't really looked into that. You get your costume from that first mission, or second mission, sorry. And you have that through the game, but of course, once I got into the simulation, I just bought something else that looked cooler to me, or I just flat out I think I just downloaded my character, for my guy at least, because all of his clothes actually stayed the same. So I just like re-downloaded the character and just kept the costume again, instead of even having to buy anything, because once you download it, you just have those clothes on you, and it's just there for you, and you can basically save it as an outfit. But once you go through that and you basically escape the simulation, you get placed into like a separate simulation that you can eventually enter and exit. And once that happens, the game really starts to pick up. You're going through, you try to get your other gang members back. And one thing that they did that I love Volition for is once again the comedy and all the references they do. When you leave the simulation, you're in your own ship, and you can go through the game and talk to the people you've rescued from the simulation. And you can talk to characters. They'll give you side quests and things like that, which are really well done. And they even have loyalty missions, much like Mass Effect. And even the ship itself is a lot like Mass Effect, where you can talk to the characters and you can even romance characters, and it's so silly. Like you, all you have to do is just press a button, and he'll just say something, and or well, she or he, whoever you choose, you'll say like a random line, the other person will say a random line, and then you just end up having sex, and that's all it is. It's like it doesn't matter if it's a guy or a girl. You just end up sleeping with everyone, and there's even a robot that you get to have sex with, and it's just really silly and over the top, and it makes no sense. But that's what Saints Row is for. It's just a fun, silly game, and when you go through the game, you get in your superpowers. Like I said, you start off super speed, super jumping, and super strength as well. You can pretty much like one hit kill all your enemies, but that gets super boring. So, for some people, it could seem pointless to have so much power. You are pretty much overpowered because you have super speed and super strength and super jumping. But even with that power, and the other abilities that you get, throughout the game, you will find yourself using weapons because some of the weapons are just cool to use. Like the handguns and shotguns are pretty basic, but they have weapons like the inflato ray, which you've probably seen in the trailer. They have, like I said, the dubstep gun is actually one of my favorite weapons because, for one, I do actually like the songs that it plays, and when you upgrade it, it's actually insanely powerful. And sometimes I'll just shoot the gun off, like not even to kill people, but just to see how it affects everyone around me, because it makes regular AI characters that are your enemies, they'll start to dance and stuff, and lights, street lights will flash on and off, and every vehicle around you like instantly gets hydraulics and just bounces up and down and stuff. Which kind of, I just thought about it. It kind of makes me wish they put that back into customization, and I don't believe I saw that where they, brought back hydraulics from Saints Row 2, but that'd be really cool if they did. But they also have like a singularity gun. It shoots black holes and it just sucks everything in. They have like a UFO gun, pretty much when you just shoot instead of like laser guided missiles from Saints Row the Third. You have like a beam of light comes down and it's like a UFO sucks up enemies and vehicles too, and it'll just shoot them up into space. And it's actually really cool to use because you can shoot it and use it on yourself, and you'll just fly up really high in the air. And with you being able to glide in the game, you can see everything you need to see, and you can just like fly straight across the city, and it's actually pretty cool to do that. But you have to be careful when you work with partners, because sometimes if you catch yourself in it, you'll shoot up in the air and it'll kind of screw up your mission, because it'll be like you can't leave this person, but you get sent like thousands of feet in the air and you just can't drop fast enough to reach it, and you fail the mission. But that's like a minor little thing that you just have to be careful about, on your own. But like the game overall, it being insanely silly and fun, it's like a huge. I can't say it's like a huge upgrade to Saints Row the Third. I love Saints Row the Third, and I think this one is very well done. Originally it being $30 DLC, they definitely put in enough content, and they do upgrade a lot. Like I said, you have tons of side quests that you actually want to do, because they can give you new abilities. They can give you like new side powers, or side abilities to your powers. Like you start off with like a stomp ability, and it just knocks people back. And then one of the upgrades you get is a shrink ability when you stomp, and it makes all your enemies really tiny. Then they have one that's like a gravity well. When you stomp, it knocks everything up and floats it, and so you can just shoot everybody. And it's really cool how they have that. But the only problem is getting the new abilities is actually really repetitive, because all it is the same side activities over and over again. To be like, okay, do telekinesis mayhem, or like hack this building to unlock it and stuff. And it's really, really repetitive to just have the same side activities over and over again, as where the side missions, or like loyalty missions for characters, are insanely fun because they're actually like story based elements, and the characters talk to each other, and they're like, I've always wanted to do this or do that. And some of the missions, like for specifically like the character Benjamin Kane, it takes you back to like Saints Row 1. And well, that's a regular mission for him, but like the side mission references Saints Row 1 with a character who basically gets put back into the game, and then you learn more about the history from Saints Row One. And like for me personally, that was really fun because I never completed Saints Row One, but I knew Saints Row Two. So going all the way back to the beginning was really interesting. To you get like the history obviously in a much quicker form than you would if you played the whole game, but you get the entire history of the characters and their relationship and how this person betrayed this person, and how they even reference how some people die in Saints Row One by recreating it in Saints Row the Third, and it's really fun to play through that. Even if I hadn't seen it, I know what they're doing, and it's really cool because they flat out say it in dialogue, like this is how they died, and then you do a specific move like that. So it's cool to go through that sort of nostalgia based aspect of the game, along with getting cool superpowers. It's just that sometimes when you get the superpowers or even some of the weapons that you unlock, it's through insanely repetitive things. Like some of the activities are really fun, and like I said, some are really boring. Like the hacking thing is pretty boring, and then everything else gets boring after you do it over and over again. But fortunately, it kind of balances out because sometimes the rewards really are worth it because like I said, you do get new superpowers, or at least a new addition to your superpower. So it's actually really fun, and some of the weapons are worth getting, like the singularity gun, because you can just shoot black holes and things will just get sucked right in and disappear, and it's really cool to see. But with this video obviously being insanely long already, I'm just gonna kind of wrap it up here. With the game being as silly as it is, I definitely hope to see more Saints Row in the future. I don't know how it could get crazier than what it is, with superpowers and things. But with the way the game ends, there are a lot of there are a ton of possibilities that they could have, for this game, and I'm definitely excited to see what they do in the future. So definitely check out Saints Row 4, and definitely check out some of the customized characters online. Because people made like Black Mask and all types of other cool characters. So definitely check those out if you for some reason, if you're having trouble making your own cool character. Definitely go on like saintsrow.com and look at some of the community uploads because some of them are like really cool. So check out Saints Row 4. Rent it, buy it, whatever. Just play it because you'll definitely have a good time with some part of the game. And thanks for watching.